Did you know that over 1/3 of U.S. adults are working side hustles right now? That's right. According to Bankrate's recent survey, 36% of Americans are hustling outside their main jobs, bringing in an average of $891 per month. These gigs aren't just for extra cash. Many cover living expenses in order to sustain their livelihoods. Millennials and Generation Z lead the pack with nearly half of them engaging in side jobs. To no one's surprise, despite high inflation, side hustlers are making more money now than they were before, up from $810 last year. But would you or have you taken on a side hustle to make ends meet or to follow your passion? Let's talk about this. All right, so I wanted to take another minute and share with you an interesting article that caught my attention on the state of the real economy or the main economy when it comes to the everyday Joe and Jane that's actually out here working, trying to grind to feed themselves and supply for their livelihoods. And so beyond the bogus figures we got today with the CPI numbers, we all know what's really happening. There's a major disconnect, or there's always been a disconnect between Wall Street and Main Street and the narrative that they try to sell us on what's really happening. And so according to them, inflation cooled further in June. The consumer price index rose 3% in June on an annual basis, a sharper slowdown in inflation than economists had expected. Before COVID, inflation was gradual to where the average person didn't even pay attention to it or didn't even notice it. And so as it says here, grocery prices nearing 40% higher in 2019. And so literally we can blame the expansion of the monetary base in such a short period of time as the reason why more people are noticing and starting to feel the pinch in their pockets, because the currency base has expanded just that much. But yet we haven't seen anything yet. And so of course I've shown this graph before, but going back to before COVID started, the M2 monetary base was 15.4 trillion. And then after the 15-day slow to spread narrative came out and all the stimulus checks and all the signatures signed to save the economy, we peaked out at 21.7 trillion. So that 6 trillion of itself is newly created currency that's all racing towards a finite amount of goods and services that we need to sustain ourselves. So it should be no surprise whatsoever that when you expand the monetary base and efforts for the rich to get richer while the working class ultimately get poorer, this has been the playbook of our government and central banking model since day one. And that's because the concept of inflation in and of itself, whether it's 2%, 3%, or any amount above zero, is a continuous expansion of the monetary base. And as I've mentioned several times before, what we're witnessing is the result of central banking, fractional reserve lending, our federal government's need to run deficit spending in order to fund itself and to pay for all these programs that they created as a solution to the very problems that they created. So since 1913 up until Joe Biden right now, this is compounded inflation looks like, where it's a slow but then sudden gradual debasement of the currency. And it's called generational theft. And as we can see from the graph right here, everybody's been able to eat good, including the silent generation, the baby boomers, even Gen X. But as of right now in this current or new economy that we're in, the millennial generation or Generation Y and the Zoomers or Generation Z are the ones that's barely able to get cents out of an entire dollar, which is a need for them to do way more work than previous generations ever even thought of. And this is a part of the reason why, one of many reasons why people have taken on side hustles or second or third jobs in this new economy we live in, because it's very rare that a single person or a household in of itself can completely sustain themselves with no adjustments in its current environment, because the currency doesn't purchase as much. And so with all that out of the way, I want to touch on an article, share my 2 cents on it, and then of course get your thoughts on it. So if you guys have any thoughts, ideas, suggestions, definitely leave them in the comment section so we can get some dialogue going back and forth in hopes of encouraging and giving people ideas and solutions on how to navigate these waters moving forward. Here's the article I'm referring to from Bankrate that came out just yesterday. And it says more than 1 in 3 Americans earn money through side hustles. 32% think that they'll always need to hustle in order to make ends meet. And so just to thumb through this briefly, give you an idea what's going on here, there's just some things that should make you wonder, make you question what we're being told from the mainstream media about the real health of the economy. It starts off by saying, if you spent your free time in the last year picking up jobs on gig apps, freelancing and working a weekend job, or developing a hobby into your full-time career, you're one of the many Americans who have been hard at work on a side hustle. The 1 in 3 side hustlers as they call it, use hustle income to pay for regular living expenses like rent and groceries, and 32% of the side hustlers think that they will always need to work these type of jobs to make ends meet. And according to their data, Bankrate pulled away 4 primary indicators of their data. And one of them is hustling is bringing in more money year over year, according to what they've calculated. And from the survey, most side hustlers started after 2022. And I'm assuming that has a lot to do with the idea of stimulus checks wearing off and the initial effects of price surges starting to kick in for most people. Then it goes on to say side hustles are roughly equally split on how they spend their money, with 30% using their money to fund discretionary spending, 30% use it for regular living expenses, 31% manage to save a little bit, and 20% use it to pay down debt. Where it gets tricky when they're talking about the demographic breakdown of those who work these side gigs. As of now, Gen Zers, age 18 to 27, which make up 48% of the total people working side gigs, Millennials, 44%, Gen Xers, 33%, and baby boomers, just 23%. One thing worth noting, that all 4 of those generations are either open or doing something in the form of extra work to provide cash for a variety of reasons. And according to this graph here, as you can see, it wasn't until after the 50s, 1960s, when the Great Society programs began and the government really began spending on that currency. The cost of goods and services started to become a concern for people beyond their need for just one income source. But where it gets interesting is the graph they put together showing you exactly how this breakdown works. And then it says here, we ask, other than your main source of income, do you personally do anything to earn extra income on the side, i.e. a side hustle? And overall, 36% said yes and 64% said no. Then when they break it down, starting with the baby boomers first, the older generation, 23% decided to go on some form of extra work to earn some income, even beyond their retirement funds, I'm sure. And then 77 said no. Gen X, it gets even bigger. 33% said yes, while 67% said no. Millennials, 44%, while 56% said no. And the youngest of them all, Gen Z, 48% said yes, while 52% said no. And so just from that breakdown right there, you can see that the younger the demographic, the more the desire and the need to earn extra income. Not only do the younger generation have a difficult time being able to actually start a job that actually pays something even barely enough to make ends meet, but majority of them are college graduates or currently in college now, where the odds of them being able to get jobs that pay relevant to the value they add to society is very small. And so that's why we see articles about how a lot of the younger generation right now stand with their parents and not able to afford the typical things that the baby boom generation was able to have, such as housing, a car, all on one income. But ultimately, in this new economy, as of right now, the older you are, the more than likely you have more savings or more assets in your possession that allows you not to work or buys you more time in the meantime. Whereas the younger you are, the less funds you have and you have no assets. And then next it gives a breakdown when they ask, on average, how much income would you say you earn in a month from your side hustle? And starting with the baby boomers, majority of them earn the bulk of theirs under $50, with the most earning over $2,000, about 4%. Gen Z, or Gen X rather, the highest percentage is between $300 to $500, with about 7% earning $2,000 or more. Millennials, the highest is $1 to $50, with the second and third highest percentage anywhere from $300 to $2,000. And then Gen Z, the highest is $1 to $50, with a much more even spread all the way from that $1 to $2,000 mark, because they're scattered off in between somewhere. The last question they put out there is, how long have you had a side hustle? And of course, the ages vary, but baby boomers appear to be on average out of their 22% that said they do work anywhere from less than a year up to 3 to 5 years. Gen X, the highest is 3 to 5 years, and on average, probably around 15% or so. Millennials, the highest 1 to 2 years, and on average, maybe 20, 25%. Get it to the point where they've been doing this for quite some time now. And then Gen Z, all as of late, literally within the last 2 years, after the stimulus checks ran out, a lot of layoffs in the service sector jobs begin to kick in. Here we have the younger portion of the population with the least amount of purchasing power in whatever currency they do have, going full steam ahead, working these side hustle jobs. So there you have it. The breakdown of the demographics of where we stand right now on Main Street with the average person and their ability or lack thereof to earn currency in this current environment due to these fraudulent inflation figures they keep giving us, telling us that everything is hunky-dory. So despite these CPI figures, clearly what we can see right now is people are literally doing things that they would have never imagined having to do. Taking on 1, 2, 3 different side hustles has not been the best use of people's time, but in this new economy we're in, people are getting used to it. And so we know the problem is the currency in of itself, but the average person has no clue. And no matter how much harder you work or how long you work in a world where fiat currency is the weapon of choice by the bankers and our government, you'll never be able to save or earn enough in fiat terms to completely and wholeheartedly sustain yourself. And so it's clear as day, the side hustle is a new part of the labor force. But then again, it doesn't have to be something looked at as a negative thing, because what it boils down to is everybody in this current environment now will be forced to become an entrepreneur, meaning that you're going to have to depend upon yourself and not an employer to provide for you, just because in this current environment, employment is based upon the economic conditions. And as long as the stock market is at all-time highs right now, you have a greater chance of being called in for work. But the moment that correction comes, I've been talking about forever, that's when you're going to get a notice or a call saying that, hey, we don't need you to come in today because there's nowhere to come in to, because we're closing our doors because we're going bankrupt or something like that. So in the meantime, I think it's smart and wise to have some side hustles. But then again, I don't call them side hustles. I call them just putting different irons in a fire. So basically, the more irons you have in a fire meaning the methods in which you earn or add value into the world, the better off you are. And so the problems are clear. The solution is obvious. Put more irons in the fire to where you're not dependent upon 1 or 2 sources of income. And so me personally, I've always tried to be somewhat of an entrepreneur, or as I call it, an entrepreneur hustler, where I literally look for problems, try to find solutions, create some irons, that then put them in the fire so I can have multiple streams of income, which is the ultimate goal that everybody should be working towards. And so at this current moment, I have about 8, 9 or 10 or so different irons in the fire that provide revenue back towards my direction, all the way from small to larger ones. But then again, it's ongoing. And then for me personally, I love the opportunity to express my creativity in a variety of forms and fashions. And so this new economy we're in now, to me, is exciting because I see nothing but opportunity and possibilities in the future, for the simple fact that there's an abundance of currency in creation right now. And there's going to be an abundance of a currency coming pretty soon, as I say, when they cut the monetary spigot on. But the goal for you as an individual, whether you're a business owner or employee, as well as an investor, is to position yourself with real world assets that would absorb some of that liquidity off to the side while also having some operations that you're involved in directly that either you have access to, you own, or you control that would allow you to add value to the economy. And ultimately boils down to solving problems in the form of education or entertainment, whichever one comes best for you. But tap into your creativity right now and figuring out how to deliver that is the best way to do that. And so at the end of the day, as I was mentioning, in a new economy requires new innovative ways to take advantage of opportunities as they come your way. That's why I continue to look for new iron to put in the fire. And the most recent iron happens to be the RTD Silver team, where I get to merge my desire to educate along with helping others all in one basket. And it allows me to accumulate an undervalued asset to use as a hedge against the very same currency that I'm talking about right now. So it's a fourfold deal. I get to stack silver by automating it once a month, educate people on the importance of silver and why everybody should be having some as a savings mechanism. 3, helping build a community of like-minded individuals that recognize the importance of silver. And then 4, by sharing it with others, allowing them to earn income by adding value to others in the form of helping them stack and save in something that we all know has a significant value now and especially in the future. And so the invitation is there if you guys are interested in finding out more about it. Links in the description. But other than that, I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this presentation here, as well as this new economy we live in where side hustling will be the new norm. And it's at a time where we haven't even really seen how bad things will get after this next correction or crash or whatever it's going to be called when we look back in the history books. And so literally, it's going to be a race to get as many irons in the fire so that you'll have something to protect and preserve yourself in terms of sound money after the currency is exposed. But anyway, I'm done. Curious to hear what you guys think. Drop a comment. Let's get some dialogue back and forth. If you found value here, hit that thumbs up. Share this so more people can find out what's going on. And I'll catch you guys later.